I was interviewed by the CBC for this article. I had a chat with Nick Logan about the space that TikTokers are filling in the news ecosystem and what this means for local journalism, especially as companies like Bell seek to cut their local journalism. And as I've said before, I am not a journalist, I am not unbiased, and I am not balanced. I have my own personal bias. I do this for me. I am not doing a job. But I was interested in reaching out to people who wanted to be informed but weren't the type of people to sit down and watch the news. And while I read a lot of newspapers and news articles online, a lot of people aren't like that. But there is a demand for news, especially for local news. The problem is that as we have cuts in the news industry, we don't have people supplying that information. There have been times where I have broken local stories before major outlets have, simply because somebody in the community who trusted me reached out to me via DMs and gave me information that was important. Like, I knew about the Service Ontario Staples deal before it was reported on by City News. I also knew about Staples firing people because people at Staples told me before it happened. That is not my job, that is not my role, that's the job for local news, but it's disappearing in Canada. And according to a report, 69% of Canadians get their news online. And while 49% get it from TV, that number is mainly driven by people 45 and up. And while TikTok only accounts for about 5% of news consumption in Canada, that does skew younger. And TikTok is not a great platform for a healthy news ecosystem. What happens if there's a multi-part series? You get part 2 of the video before part 1, you don't have the context, and unless you're super engaged, you're not going to go back and go to the profile to find that part 1. What happens if you get that part 2 video, and the part 1 video is so far down in the feed that you can't find it? The trust that I have built up with my audience is typically the type of trust that local news journalists would have built up with their local community. But we don't have that anymore, and my videos go out to people all over Ontario, all over Canada. I can't be a representative for a local small town, and I don't have the same level of journalistic diligence that is needed to do the job right. Because I have my own full-time job, I do this on the side for fun. As I told Nick Logan of the CBC, we shouldn't be picking up the slack for the journalistic outlets that don't deem it important to properly support their staff.